streaming into the deep end of the pool with us here on Birds 365 as we recap a victorious Monday after the Eagles come from behind to beat the Colts 17-16 yesterday to get the 9-1 on the season. Hey, whether you've been with us since day one and this is the 409th edition of Birds 365 you're watching, or if you're first time streaming guy, hit that like button, like, share, and subscribe. We need help with our algorithm, or so I'm told. So thank you all for streaming in today. We got a nice number of people jumping in, over 500 streamed in right now, talking about the Eagles' win against the Colts. Come from behind, last possession, Jalen Hurts, the Red Sea parted up the middle, and he took a quarterback sneak into the end zone, quarterback draw for the Eagles W. And when the game was over, after they were able to stop the Colts and turn them over on downs, you saw Nick Sirianni get on the bench and scream at the Eagle fans who were behind the Eagle bench, maybe a couple of the Colts fans while he was at it as well. Pretty emotional day for Nick Sirianni. He downplayed it, Barrett, before the game, that I was there and it's nice to be nice to go back. But he did not let on how much this game meant to him. At least, in my opinion, I don't think he did. He's as tight as he is with Frank Reich. You certainly know that. He's talked about it many a time since he's taken over as the coach for the Eagles. The coach wanted this one badly yesterday, Barrett.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. You can tell by the emotion of after the game. I don't know if you watched after the game, but he talked about it. He said, they let his best friend go. You know what I'm saying? The guy that he looked up to. He equated, Frank Reich to, he said, as far as individuals that influenced his life, he said his parents, his pops, and he had Frank Reich right up there with him as far as the people that influenced him, who he is as a man. So, yeah, he was emotional about it, at the end of the game. And we had, like I said, our post-game show, Ruben, Frank, and Jaws kind of downplayed and said, no, he just wanted to win. And I'm like, no. I said there's a lot to do. It had a lot to do with, number one, he coached there 2 years prior. But number two, they let one of the guys that, directly influenced his life go. And you can't tell me that Frank Reich wasn't a part of that game planning system and telling everything that he needed to know about how they could win this game. You know what I'm saying? You could tell in the emotion that he displayed afterwards, just going to reaffirm what I was thinking. Yeah, he wanted to win one for the Kipper. He wanted to, yes. And he wanted to put it on him, yep.
We'll never know, because Sirianni will never tell us, and I doubt Reich will ever tell us, as to how much information was shared between those two guys this week.
I'd have gave up everything. I'd have given all tape. I'd have told him everything he wanted to know.
Here's where I'm going to come up short of 100%. There are a whole bunch of coaches on the Indianapolis coaching staff that Frank Reich had his hand in on hiring. So the organization, Jim Irsay, told him, your services are no longer needed. I don't think he cares whit one about Jeff Saturday and his success going forward. Reich doesn't care a little bit. But There were a whole bunch of guys on that staff that were left behind that were overlooked to take Reich's place that he probably felt pretty bad for. And if you're just emptying the bucket to give the Eagles every piece of information you have, you are spitting in the eye of guys who were your former compatriots on your staff that you had as something not. So I don't know that it was completely 100%. Do I think he gave him enough to help the Eagles win that game yesterday? Yeah, I do. But I don't think it was 100% because I think Reich's emotions had to be at least a little split because a couple of guys are suffering that he left behind.
Jody, I'd have given him everything. I'd have gave him.
You're sticking to 100%.
I'd have gave him mom's social security number. Everything, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'd have gave him anything he wanted to know, man. Because that's unceremoniously letting a guy go like that. And then number two, I mean, that's a slap in the face when you're a coach there. Scotty Montgomery, really good friend of mine. I played with him while I had a little short stint in Denver. Scotty, he's the running back coach there. Has so much coaching experience, like maybe 10, 15 years of coaching experience, gets slapped in the face. Kevin Mawai, a Hall of Famer coaching, got slapped in the face, didn't even get a consideration. Bradley.
Let me ask you this question: is Frank Reich not as big a slap? There are different slaps. There's some where it comes from back here in Hohokus and it comes all the way through the door.
Yeah.
Slaps like this. Isn't Frank Reich slapping your boy in the face when he said, "Here, let me give you every piece of information about what the Colts running backs are going to try and do against an opponent like the Eagles"?
I'm gonna tell you this: those coaches like Scotty Montgomery, Reggie Wayne, Mawai, all those guys are like, man, give them whatever they want, man, because this organization did me dirty. Also, Bradley, they did me dirty. All those people in that organization are pissed off. You know what I'm saying? They're pissed off also. So they wouldn't mind getting anything that, giving them everything that it could.
So
they
you think, basically, you think the Colts are dead in the water, that there's a mutiny on that coaching staff, that they're so ticked off that Jeff Saturday comes out of left field to come in and take over the team, and none of those guys were really even considered. You think they're all just going through the motions at best right now?
They're not going to go through the motions because you're still interviewing for 31 other teams. You're still a professional. You still want to make sure that, your light is shining, and you still coach the hell out of the players that you're coaching. Those players need to know that you're fully invested in it, in order to get the optimum output out of them. So you got to go on thinking, hey, I don't care who's coaching, who's the head coach, but I know my guys better be on point, because there are going to be other teams looking to come pick me up, and they're going to see how I responded to this and see how my guys responded to it. And they played better, you know what I'm saying, even when, I got screwed. So,
who's the one guy who kind of surprised me, Barrett, in that vein? Reggie Wayne. Yeah. Because they've been approaching him for the last couple of years to come in and coach up the wide receivers. And Wayne had turned him down. He had said, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. And finally this past year, Frank Reich talked him into it and said, come on, Red, we could really use you. We know how great a wide receiver you were. You are an Indianapolis Colt. Come on, we need you. And he finally relented and said, all right, I'll come in and coach the wide receivers. And then they fired the guy who talked him into it.
Right.
I thought there was a good chance that Reggie Wayne was going, see ya, and just turn around and pack it up and going home and saying, I didn't need this job to begin with. I did it as a favor to my friend Frank Reich, and I did it because I'm loyal to the Indianapolis Colts. And here's what the Indianapolis Colts told me. Not even considered to be the new head coaching job. See you later. Bye, guys. I thought there was a chance that happened, but maybe Reggie's in the mode that you just described. Now that he's into coaching, he likes the coaching, and he wants to be considered as a guy who can coach elsewhere if that's the way the chips shake out over the offseason.
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely what's going on. I mean, these guys, man, these guys work hard. They work really hard, and they want to be respected. And to sit back and have a coach, you're not even getting, an opportunity to interview for the position. I mean, that's a real slap in the face. A real slap in the face.
Fair enough. All right.
And Saturday knows it too. Saturday understands it also.
By the way, Eagles won the game. Saturday has not done a terrible job since he's taken over. They win last week. Yeah, they beat a bad Raiders squad. No question. But they had the Eagles down. They couldn't keep them down. Whatever he's done, he has kept that coaching staff together, even though you say that there's probably some really raw guys still in there for the way that it all shook out. I think you have to give Saturday at least some credit. I don't know how good a coach he's going to be. I don't even know if this is what he wants to do and stick around and be their coach in the long term. I think the only thing that's a lock is he's the coach for the rest of this season. But he's done a nice job at keeping that staff together, and they almost beat the Eagles yesterday. I give you a game that wasn't almost. The Cowboys just crushed the Vikings yesterday. I did not see that coming. The Cowboys were a favorite in the game in Minnesota. I understood it from an emotional perspective. Cowboys coming off a tough loss, desperately need the game, got beat by Green Bay on the Sunday night as a favorite up in Green Bay. The Vikings may be on an emotional high, go into Buffalo and win, maybe riding a little bit too high. Yeah, there were a couple things that pointed to the fact that the Cowboys could go into Minnesota and beat the Vikings. 40-3. 40-3. I did not see that coming. And I'll tell you what, I was more impressed. The Cowboys put up a 40 spot. I was more impressed with the Cowboys defense. And yeah, their superstar linebacker / defensive end had a phenomenal game. Nobody's ever surprised by that. But everybody else stepped up for them as well. The Vikings are one of the better offenses in the National Football League. They did diddly against that Cowboy defense yesterday. Barrett, is that final Cowboy-Eagles game going to be a shootout down in Dallas, a defensive struggle down in Dallas? What do you make? I know we're still several weeks away before Christmas Eve, but what do you make about the Cowboy-Eagle matchup as of right now?
It'll be a shootout. It'll be a shootout. It'll be one, as you know, that it'll be one for the books, simply because it's a rivalry. And when you go into rivalries like that, you could throw the records out the door. You could throw, everything out there as far as who's the better team. Because I've seen teams where I played on where we were by no means anywhere close to the offensive firepower that the Dallas Cowboys had. When they had Moose, Irving, Dion, Troy, the best offensive line in the league, and we beat them. And there's times where I've seen a team where, the Eagles are stacked. They have everybody, and Dallas has nobody. Offensive line sucks. Tony Romo sucks. And then, the Eagles got 5. They got everybody, Westbrook, and they end up losing. So you just throw those records out the door, throw talent out the door. Sometimes it's just a good old street fight, and that's what it's going to be versus Dallas, a street fight. It's not going to matter what our record is. It's not going to matter what their record is. They're just going to go out there. They're going to try to whoop our ass, and we're going to try to whoop their ass. It's just going to go back and forth, and it's virtually the war of attrition. Whoever ends up at the end of the game more healthier and ready to make a play is going to win the game, because it's going to go down to the wire. It's going to go down to the wire, especially being in Dallas. And there's going to be some home cooking going on down in Dallas. So, it'll be a street fight. That's football I love to watch right there, street fights like that. Because Dallas is pissed off because we already whooped them.
Barrett laying the groundwork for referee defense, that they'll get home cooking down there in Dallas. Wait, they got some home cooking. The Eagles got some good calls going their way yesterday on the road, so you never really know. But I was just shocked at the outcome of that game. Not the fact that the Cowboys won, that it was as non-competitive as it was, which now gives the Eagles a 2-game lead for the best record in the NFC. As a matter of fact, over the Giants. It's 2.5 over both Minnesota and Dallas, because you beat both of those two teams. Yeah, Dallas gets the rematch to get that one even on Christmas Eve. But do you think this is the kind of game where the Vikings take a step backwards? Or is it just like we thought last week when the Eagles got beat? All right, now you got to come out. You got to go beat Indianapolis. They did. They took care of business the way that they wanted to and had to. Same thing for the Vikings, or is this more than just a loss because they got pummeled by 37 points?
That's more than just a loss.
Okay.
That's a good old-fashioned home-baked shellacking type of pie they just ate. That put some serious doubt in that team's mind on how good are they really. That's what that did. I mean, they beat them like they stole something. I feel bad. You know what I mean? It's crazy they allowed them to just run up and down the field on them, do whatever they want to do, and then stop that offense. That offense, Adam Thielen and all those guys, they should be able to play. Cook, all those guys to get beat like that, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
I got a buddy, one of my best friends was a Viking fan, who, when they beat Buffalo last week, he had to text me to make sure that I knew what the Vikings did. What do you think? I'm not paying attention to the biggest game of the week, Buffalo against Minnesota? Of course I said. But he went so far as to say, and Justin Jefferson is going to surpass Jerry Rice as the greatest receiver in the history of the National Football League.
Whoa,
And I
whoa,
said,
whoa.
do you think we're putting a cart in front of the horse here, big guy? Yeah, Jefferson's look great, but we're talking about not only the best receiver in the history of the National Football League. Oh, let me make it a question for you. Who's the greatest football player in the history of the NFL?
Mr. White. Was there any question?
Yeah, there is.
Mr. White, man.
Sorry,
Mr. White could do everything well. All right, well, let me change like this. He's the best player I ever played.
Okay, that's fine, and I get it where you come from. You have a very specific prism you're looking through.
Right.
Former NFL lineman. I'm not. I'm just a stupid talk show host. So for me, everybody always talks about the quarterback. Tom Brady's the greatest football player of all time. No, he's not. He's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yes.
Some people say Jim Brown at the running back position. I get it. Whole other game. The game was played differently. The way you won games was different. Jim Brown, you can make the argument, greatest running back of all time. I won't fight you there. But I think the greatest player in the history of the National Football League is Jerry Rice. For one reason and one reason only. And if Justin Jefferson gets me to change my opinion here, so be it. The drop-off from Jerry Rice to the next best wide receiver of all time, who's probably Randy Moss, is greater than the drop-off between Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White and Bruce Smith, Tom Brady and Joe Montana, Tom Brady and the gap between the best wide receiver and the second best wide receiver is greater than the gap between the best positional player at any other position and the number two guy. That's why I say Jerry Rice is the greatest football player of all time.
That's a great way to put that. That's a different way of looking at the whole situation, because the drop off between Mr. White and you're right.
LT was pretty damn good coming off that edge.
Well, he's a linebacker though. Game. I mean, would you call him a linebacker?
Well, here's the question, because John and I get into this all the time. Not so much he and I, but he and people on the stream and his Twitter, whatever else. What's Hassan Reddick?
Right, exactly. Like when you look at
Hassan Reddick is supposedly a linebacker, but he's not. He's a defensive end. You know he's a defensive end. The Eagles know he's a defensive end. He might not be, like, I was looking at the number of snaps on the game day log from the Eagles yesterday. They list Hassan Reddick as a linebacker. No, he's not. He's a defensive end. And exactly. Lawrence Taylor might have been a quote-unquote linebacker. No, he was an edge guy. He was a defensive end.
And they literally changed how you block offenses because of him. He wrecked shop. They had to change what you do to run your offense, because if you didn't, for a long time, teams tried to say, all right, we can just handle him with a tight end and a running back. No. You got to put an offensive lineman on him, and you got to bring help to that offensive lineman when you put it on him. So they definitely changed how you block schemes as it pertains to Lawrence Taylor. You're right. You're right about it. I never looked at it like that.
Yeah, different way to look at it, and neither one of us is right, neither one of us is wrong. It's just how you look at it. All right, one other game I wanted to get your feel on, and again, playing at the same time as the Eagles were playing, so you might not have gotten a chance to watch as much of it. I tried to jump around, watch a couple different games, had the Eagles on tape, so I go back, fast forward, and try and get a bunch of stuff in. But locally, we had the Giants and the Lions here in Philadelphia. Another game I didn't see coming. Thought it would be competitive. Thought it was going to hang in the balance. The Lions just shut down the Giants offense. Now, Giants offense isn't spectacular. It's not like the Viking offense, for damn sure. But Saquon Barkley was having a hell of a year, came into the week as the leading rusher in the National Football League. Derrick Henry went by him on Thursday night, but Saquon had the chance to catch up and retake the lead. Not even close. 20 yards rushing for the entire game for Saquon Barkley. How the hell did the Detroit Lions, who the Eagles ran through pretty damn good week one, and a lot of teams have, they were 1-6 at one point. They've now won 3 games in a row, but they shut down Saquon Barkley yesterday. How'd the Lions do that, or how bad did the Giants have to be that they could only open up enough holes for Saquon Barkley to run for 20 yards?
That's incredible because, where Saquon went, that team went. And I don't know. I mean, I guess Dan Campbell was biting giant kneecaps, bro. That was, I can't wait to watch that game. I can't wait to evaluate that game, sit down and watch the all 22 because I haven't yet to do that yet. I mean, I had a long weekend this weekend, so I haven't even sat down and watched, our game yet. Usually before I get on shows, I sit down and I watch, the film first so I know what the heck I'm talking about. But this time I wasn't able to do it. I had a long weekend, man. I did actually did the Kansas State or West Virginia game.
Right.
My old alma mater. I called the game for ESPN this weekend. And they used to say, you had to drive all the way from Morgantown back to Pittsburgh to fly out. So it was pretty early in the morning. I had to drive. So I was a little tired anyways. And I got to work at 10. And, needless to say.
All right, so in other words, you're taking a nap between this show and Sports Take this afternoon. You've earned it. You deserved it. And truly appreciate your getting up and watching for me. But when you watch that all 22 tape of the Giants, 15 rushes, 22 yards, the longest run of the day, 15 rushes. The most he gained was 4 yards on one play. That's a pretty damn good defensive effort by the Lions.
What was Daniel Jones' numbers?
Are you ready for this one?
Let me see.
Daniel Jones had to throw it 44 times yesterday.
Wow.
You don't want Daniel Jones throwing the football 44 times. I'm sorry. Who? Never do you want him throwing the football 44 times. Now, he did throw for 341 yards. You should if you throw it 44 times. But he threw 2 picks, which Jones had the longest streak in the NFL of most passes without an interception. He was leading up until yesterday. He threw one early, and he threw another one later in the game. The Giant offense did not move the ball against a Lions defense. And the kid Hutchinson is really coming on. We knew he was going to be a stud when he was picked as high as he was in the draft. He had an interception yesterday. He had 2 guys, defensive linemen, come up with interceptions in the league yesterday. Have you seen the highlight play? And again, know how busy you are. You were doing the Eagles. You do the post-game show, whatever. Did you see the T.J. Watt interception yet?
No, I didn't. Did they win?
Holy mackerel. He just goes up and takes the Joe Burrow pass as a defensive lineman right out of the air. He just goes up and snatches it down. It's an amazing play. You'll see it. Watt and Hutchinson, at least Hutchinson was dropping back. I always roll my eyes when defensive linemen are used in coverage, that they try and catch the other team off guard. You'll never think that he's dropping back coverage. Hutchinson was at least off the line yesterday. T.J. Watt made the interception dead in the middle of the defensive line for the Steelers yesterday. Amazing play. But the Giants got abused yesterday. They've got 2 more games. When I say they, I mean the Eagles against the Giants this year. Giants going to hang in here and continue to be a playoff team. I don't think they're going to catch the Eagles. The final game of the year, I would bet more on it being a game where the Eagles can pull guys off the field rather than have to need a win. But they've got to play the Giants before that. How competitive is that game right now in your eyes?
I mean, anytime you make the Giants do what they don't want to do, and that's throw the ball, you can win, man. And I think that when you look at us, we can now stop the run. So at this point, I don't think they have a snowball's chance in hell competing with us. I mean, there's no way. There is no way at this point that I see us even splitting with them. You know what I mean? I can't say
they could split because we saw what happened when they put the JV out for the last game of the year last year.
Right.
The Cowboys kind of put a beat down on them. So it may be a split, but because the Eagles don't worry about the
we already locked it up. Yeah, you said we locked it up.
Game. That I think that's a possibility. We got to see. We got to let it play out. But I know I'll be talking about this with John yesterday because John has, on a week in, week out basis, continued to say, yeah, and I don't think the Giants are good. Yeah, and I don't believe what the Giants are doing. Yeah, the Giants are a mirage. Don't worry about what their record is. I've given him more credit than John has. not bending over backwards to say the Eagles should have any fear of the Giants, but I've at least given them some credit. Yeah, it looks like McMullen was right yesterday, because you can't get beat at home by the Lions and get an by the way touchdown and still lose by double-digit points. That's not a good look, Giant fans. All right, he's Barrett Brooks. I'm Jody McDonald. We'll come back, put a bow on the show. We got 10 minutes left here on Birds 365. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to us here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on.